Great, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021 City Council meeting. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Council Member Stevens, who has asked to be excused this evening. Just as reference, we read the chair's determination in the work session, so that has been taken care of. We will begin tonight with a Pledge of Allegiance offered by Vice Chair White.
Thank you, Chair Blair. Please rise if you are able. And repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair White. Now we would ask those who are joining us tonight to join with us for a moment of silence. Thank you. First on our agenda is a recognition for Autism Awareness Month. And we have Stacy, I believe it's Stacy Bernal from Awesome Autistic Ogden here tonight. And we've asked Councilmember Nadolski to go ahead and read that joint proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to declare April 2021 Autism Appreciation Month in Ogden City. Whereas autism is prevalent throughout the world and in our community, it is important for individuals with autism to feel loved and appreciated. Despite the challenges they face, those with autism make valuable contributions to their families and throughout the Ogden community. And whereas autism is a developmental disorder that affects an individual's behavior, social skills, and ability to communicate. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, about 1 in 59 children are diagnosed with autism. It affects individuals of all racial, ethnic, and social backgrounds. And whereas Autism Appreciation Month celebrates and honors individuals with autism in Ogden City. So this month is a great opportunity to spread awareness of the challenges that individuals with autism face, celebrate their unique gifts, and show appreciation for their contributions to our community. And whereas in 1972, the Autism Society launched National Autistic Children's Week, which became Autism Acceptance Month. The Society's theme for this year is Celebrate Differences, with a focus on providing information and resources for communities to be more aware of autism, promote acceptance, and more inclusivity in everyday life. And whereas Awesome Autistic Ogden creates autism appreciation and awareness opportunities in Ogden City. They are devoted to help the autistic individuals in our community feel loved and valued. They host and plan events to celebrate the neurodiversity in Northern Utah. It was the organization's suggestion for Autism Appreciation Month for a more positive approach to the disorder. And whereas this April, Ogden City honors individuals with autism, we invite everyone to learn more about and support people with autism, and we encourage everyone to get involved by helping to promote acceptance, spread awareness, and show appreciation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell hereby proclaim April 2021 as Autism Appreciation Month in Ogden City. We encourage residents, schools, businesses, and community groups to recognize and increase autism awareness and appreciation in our community. We appreciate the efforts of Awesome Autistic Ogden and other organizations that help those with autism to live full, successful lives. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we adopt this joint proclamation.
Second.
Great, thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Nadolski to adopt this joint proclamation and a second by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. And we would invite, sorry.
We have Stacy Bernal is with us today.
Yes.
Stacy's a good friend in many ways to a lot of us in Ogden, and certainly a friend to autism.
Thank you. Thank you, council members. I asked my son if he wanted to hop on. He said no. But this is a picture of him up there and my other two kids. So wanted to make that introduction and just thank you all. And I put down some words so that I can be fully in this moment with all of you. When I did the first autism walk in 2018, I did it for my then 12-year-old son. I did it because no one else was doing it. I did it because I knew how hard it could be for families of autistic, neurodiverse, and disabled people. I did it because I wanted to help create awareness of these different kids so that they wouldn't be bullied at school and maybe, just maybe, they'd be able to make friends. That little 12-year-old boy is now an almost 16-year-old, 6'1", 190-pound young man. He's insanely smart, incredibly socially awkward, and a talented artist who can often be found wearing noise-canceling headphones and talking softly to himself. And the why, the mission of Awesome Autistic Ogden, while still a celebration of the beauty that is neurodiversity, has also taken on a sense of urgency. Autistic children grow up to be autistic adults. Research shows they are 4 times more likely than neurotypicals to experience depression over the course of their lives. That more than 70% of autistic youth have mental health conditions, including depression and anxiety, and their rates of depression rise with intelligence and with age. In a 2018 study in the US, autistic people had a higher likelihood of gender diversity, with 6.5% of autistic adolescents and 11.4% of autistic adults saying they wished to be the gender opposite of what they had been assigned at birth. Autistic people have more than 3-fold higher rates of suicide and suicide attempt than the general population, and autistic girls and women have a notably higher risk. Researchers also found that high-functioning autistic people are at higher risk of suicide as they're more likely to get less support. But the most alarming statistic, the one that lies like an elephant on my chest, is that disabled individuals make up 1/3 to half of all people killed by law enforcement. Last week, while doing a diversity, equity, and inclusion training, trying to teach a room full of people what it's like raising an autistic son, I posed the question, have you ever had to have a conversation where you had to tell your child to be careful around police? No, said one attendee, but my kids are good kids. I want y'all to know that my son is a good kid, that neurodiverse and disabled kids are good kids. And sometimes it's the world that's not good to them. My challenge to all of you as council members and to any community members who are listening, not just in April, but every day, every week of every year, try to be a part of the solution rather than a part of the problem. Do your part to try to create a better world for people who are different than you. Learn to recognize what a sensory overload looks like rather than assume it's a bratty kid and a bad parent. I think most of us are aware of autism. We as a community need to go a step further and build bridges of understanding, appreciation, inclusivity, and kindness. I thank you again for this proclamation. Please follow us on Facebook. We will be posting all of our festivities for the month of April. And as always, keep it weird, Ogden. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Any questions or comments for Stacy?
I'd love to make a comment, Chair.
Sure.
Sorry. Well, thank you so much, Stacy, for all you do for the city. As Councilmember Nadolski mentioned, you're such a champion for this effort and for the Ogden Marathon, which we were just talking about earlier in our work session, and many other things. Really appreciate it, and thank you for hosting these events, even in light of the pandemic.
Absolutely, thank you. And I did also want to note that thank you, Councilmember White, for saying stand if you are able, because that's something that, not everyone is able to stand. So I appreciate that you said that. And our events will be both online and some in person. So we want to make it accommodating to everyone and your comfort level. We will be kicking off at the Autistic Artistic Art Stroll on the 2nd at the Monarch. So shout out to the Monarch for allowing us the space to be there. And we'll be featuring some artistic autistic artists.
Mr. Chair, if there's no other comments from other council members, I'd like to share a story with Ms. Bernal, if it's okay.
Yeah.
So your comments, Stacy, reminded me of an experience I had that I want to share with you. I wasn't planning to say this, but it was your comments that sparked it. I have a heartwarming experience with Ogden Police Department that I think you'll appreciate, and because your statistics were alarming. Years ago, I did ride-alongs with our police department when I first started on the council, and I got to do quite a few of them. Same with the police department or the fire department. But there was one day I was out with, I think it was my ride-along with the community policing group, but I was with a couple of officers, and we were looking for a young boy who I'm not able to diagnose issues, but I think was autistic. And his mom was really concerned, called police asking for help because he was missing. And we knew where he was. The officers I was with found him. And she made it clear that he had these challenges, and our police officers were really intent to listen. And I'll just say that one of the officers I was with was very, we'll just say, physically capable, right? A very physically impressive man. And on the outward impression, you would think that you would assume how he would handle the circumstance when we approached this young boy and he ran from the police. And I watched the police officers run to catch up with him, and I was a little bit worried for the boy, but I became quickly settled when this police officer with so much capability just so softly touched his shoulder and slowed him down and turned him and kept his hand on his shoulder, and just connected with his boy so quickly and so authentically, and just made that boy feel safe so quickly, and said, "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not going to. I'm here to help you. There's people that love you and want you home, and we're here just to give you a ride if you'll let us." And I'm telling you, it was a long walk back to the police car because it was kind of a long run. This kid can move, right? And I just watched that officer build that rapport with that kid. That just really, really amazed me and impressed me. And I'll never forget that time. And I know that officer has been involved in some really difficult circumstances beyond that have required all those other gifts that he has too. And so while your statistics were so alarming, I wanted to share that story because there's such goodness within our officers too. And I got to see it too. And so thanks for making us aware of how it could have gone that day. And I'll always be thankful for how it did go that day for him. So thank you for being with us. And thanks for everything you do for Ogden.
Thank you for sharing that story. And I do want to acknowledge that I'm also on the Ogden City Diversity Commission, and we have a lot of conversations with OPD and had Chief Young on our last meeting. And we talked about that. And I know that OPD is making efforts, and I know that we just had a bill passed so that our law enforcement is really going to work to be able to recognize our neurodiverse loved ones, and hopefully the kids and adults in our community that are on the spectrum that have other mental and neuro disabilities, that we can all keep them safe. And I feel like we're on the right path. And I will just continue to do my part to keep my one safe. But yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Stacy.
Yep. Okay. Next up, we have a request to be on the agenda. Tonight we have with us Beth Holbrook from the UTA. And she is here to present the UTA 5-year service plan.
I thought I hit the mute. I apologize. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and council and mayor and staff. This is Beth Holbrook with Utah Transit Authority, and I'm the trustee that represents Davis, Weber, and Box Elder, specifically Weber, of course, as we are talking about some of the things that we are wanting to do to help to provide even better service for your area. really quickly, I wanted to introduce the other people that are with me this evening. Some of them you can't see, but they are here and available whenever necessary. I have Laura Hansen with me. She is our Director of Planning, and she'll be presenting a portion of this with me. She is a great resource to everyone, especially your planning departments. And I also have Shul Bishop, who is our Director of Government Affairs. And I have Andreas Coleman, who is the manager for the Mount Ogden Business Unit. And so Andreas is the one who makes the buses run and get where they need to go. So again, all of us are here to make sure that we do everything that we can to service your community. With that, I'll go ahead and start my presentation. But I do want to say that if there's ever any questions, I sometimes don't wait for the end of the presentation. Sometimes the questions come up and then you forget to ask them. And I totally understand because I do that all the time. What I wanted to show you and talk about are some of the things that I know that your community and your council grapple with even today. If you look at the slide and you look at the upper right-hand corner, that's the population metric that was provided to all of the communities. And as you can see, doubling of the population is going to happen pretty quickly, relatively speaking. And as we know that our region is growing. Our region is growing in many, many different ways than we anticipated, and some that we did. And one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing is that we're helping to address that growth in our perspective. And some of those growth issues are air quality, traffic congestion, economic growth, and access to opportunities for economic growth or education or any other elements. Next slide, please. We really want to make sure that we are accessible to you when you are talking about your long-range planning, when you're talking about other areas. I just heard a term earlier today by Mark Johnson. There was something about the Wonder location that's going to be that's being developed in the near future in downtown Ogden. And some of these things that you are doing as a council and as the staff are really looking at these long-range planning methodologies and what you are doing to accommodate growth in many different ways. We want to be there to help you. We know that you are going to be updating your general plans, reconstructing streets, considering approvals of new developments. We want to be able to make sure that we are connecting with you. And so anytime you have a big development or some other element that you think would be impactful, we want to make sure that we're available. One of the things I wanted to talk about specifically, and I apologize, I didn't do this at the beginning, but this service plan is a new situation and it's a new process for UTA. And this is in regards to the bus specifically, because we want to make sure that our buses are increasing connectivity throughout the communities that we serve. And I've been happy to answer our questions about the Ogden BRT, which I'd be happy to talk about just a little bit, but this actually is in regards to what we're looking at doing with those buses that are going within your community, dropping people off from one location to another. These are the things that we wanted to focus on and let you know that we're looking at all of our growth and all of our ridership within the communities in a lot of different ways, and we're incorporating a lot of different elements to do that. Next slide, please. So with that, I will turn this over to Laura. She is going to talk about some of the details that she and her team are working on, and I will take it back up in just a moment.
Thank you, Trustee, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council. It's great to be here with you today and to share a little bit about our new 5-year service plan. This is a document that UTA has just adopted for the first time. Our idea here with a 5-year service plan is to provide some predictability and transparency to our local government, so you know what types of things are coming down the pipe in terms of our service planning. But I wanted to highlight that this 5-year service plan is really just one piece of our overall planning process. And we really start with working with the Wasatch Front Regional Council in developing the RTP. We'll be developing a complementary extension to that, which includes all of our local bus service. that we're calling the UTA Long Range Transit Plan. So those are both that 30-year vision. The next tier down is this 5-year service plan that we're sharing with you today. Think of this as a short-range plan. It's kind of a work program for the next few years, but nothing that's in this plan is finalized at this point. We anticipate having lots of additional conversations with both our riders and the local governments that have changes that are affecting your community. And we'll work very closely with you to make sure that it's the right change before we actually implement something at one of our annual change days. So this new 5-year service plan is designed as an interactive document. You can explore it using the web link that's at the bottom of the screen there. And it's really organized around a series of guiding principles. And the first of which is system-wide planning. For the first time, really, we are thinking at a whole different level about county-to-county connections and then mode-to-mode connections. So how does this regional connectivity work, and how does our whole network of services fit together as a system? We're also investing in a core route network. So this is a series of our very best bus services. They run early in the morning, late in the evening, 7 days a week, 15 minutes or better. We don't have very many of these yet, and they're indicated by the green lines on the map, and we'll zoom into more detail, but we do anticipate adding more over time. Throughout the pandemic, we've seen some interesting changes in travel patterns. A lot of people who used to commute are now teleworking. We think some of those will come back to commuting, but some may not. But interestingly, we have seen a really steady demand for all-day service and transit service in the middle of the day, so outside of those morning and afternoon peak hours. And so in this plan, we are really doubling down on all-day service to make sure that our services are available to meet the needs of everybody at any time of the day. Similarly, we're expanding our hours to run earlier in the morning, later in the evening. We're exploring the role of new technologies such as microtransit, and how that might fit into our future. And then we're laying the foundation for new projects, such as the BRT project that Trustee Holbrook just mentioned. This is an overview of your existing transit service in the community. You can see the green line again, it's 15 minutes or more. The red lines are those commuter routes, and the blue are all-day routes that run every 30 or more minutes. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Trustee Holbrook again.
Thank you, Laura. I always feel like it's a great opportunity to talk to the planners directly. They really know everything that's on the ground, literally in our case. I also wanted to focus on some of the elements that we work on annually. We have done improvements to bus stops, 46 of them since 2016. And as you can see what these improvements look like, some of them are cement pads with benches. We definitely are looking at some of our branding and really trying to get all of those stops to be upgraded at some point. This is, as you can see, the address. This is the before and after shots of these. Next slide, please. So here's something that we are definitely looking at doing. And I wanted to talk about this really quickly because this is one of the things that I'm really excited to talk about. We are going to be having I'm going to announce this first. I know you guys might have heard of this already, but we're having a groundbreaking for the Ogden Weber State BRT, Bus Rapid Transit. And that groundbreaking is April 13th at 2 p.m. at Weber State University at the Browning Center. And you do have to register if you wanted to attend in person, but we're happy to make those connections for you. And I just wanted to go on a little bit about what exactly this route is going to be doing. So this route is designed to be a connector route from our Ogden Frontrunner station down through the junction. And as you can see and kind of follow along on the map, and then up over onto Washington and up 25th Street, and then onto Harrison. And it's actually going to go onto the Weber State University campus. In fact, we're going to be replacing their campus connector service by integrating this within their system as well as along with our BRT system. And then it's going to end at McCady Hospital and reverse the route. One of the things that I really wanted to kind of talk about a little bit as well is that this is going to improve bus service on State Street and Main Street Oh, wait, sorry. I'm sorry. Wrong line. Sorry about that. This is actually one of our unique characteristics of the bus rapid transit is that it's going to be an all electric system. And that means that the buses are all electric. We've just started the acquisition process to this. And as we break ground on this project, we anticipate that in 2023, the BRT service will be up and running throughout all of the areas located on that. And then in addition to that, some of the other things that we're doing in the short term are we're improving our bus service on State Street and Main Street between Farmington and Ogden, improving all-day service on many routes. We're going to be adding bus service between Ogden and Pleasant View Frontrunner stations. We're going to improve local bus connections, construct a transit hub at the D Event Center, and that construction is part of the BRT project. And then long term, we're looking at how can we improve that interconnectivity, not just within Ogden City, but also within the region. And we wanted to look at areas between Ogden, Clearfield, Roy, and Box Elder County. As we know, Hill Air Force Base and in the Clearfield and Roy area, there's a tremendous amount of growth in terms of jobs that is going on in those areas. And we want to make sure that we are capturing as much connectivity as we possibly can to help complement that growth. In addition to that, we do anticipate doing some frontrunner improvements. We're very fortunate during this past legislative session in that the legislators basically created a system to allow us to fund some strategic double tracking of the frontrunner system. Basically, what that means is that frontrunner will be double tracked along larger portions of our current system so that trains can pass each other. In addition to that, they also are going to be able to establish what we would call an express service, which means it wouldn't necessarily hit every single city. We would have one service that would hit every single city the way it does normally, and then the other would be an express of some kind. Those were some of the elements of House Bill 433 that were passed this past session. We also intend to do bus maintenance facility upgrades and the Ogden Canyon Park and Ride. Next slide, please. I gave you guys plenty of time to look at that map. So hopefully, if you have any questions, you can remember that. I just kind of wanted to put out there, though, that as Laura mentioned, our long-range plans are really dovetailed with WFRC and their long-range transportation plans. And as you can see by the various colors, you can see those phases of when those are going to be implemented. And as everyone is aware, there's some elements that don't have funding yet, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't put them on our long-range plan because we want to make sure that we are addressing some of those growth issues. Next slide, please. In addition to the long-range plan in terms of the bus services, we also look at some of the other things that we're seeing in technology, for instance. We want to do bus stop improvements and amenities, but we also have microtransit, park and ride lots, paratransit, van pool, transfer facilities and hubs, and garage and maintenance facilities. Some of that technology that we look at, for instance, with microtransit, is that service is really designed to be an on-demand type service. It's very similar to Uber and Lyft, but it is the structure is integrated within UTA, which means you're not paying that cost. You're simply just getting onto a service, just like you would be getting onto a bus. Next slide, please. In addition, we were definitely going to be looking to maximize the funding that we have received from the state to go after federal funding, including grants. As you know, a couple of years ago, the legislature created the Transportation Investment Fund, which is actually managed by the Transportation Commission. Local funding, reinvestment zones are a thing that a legislation that passed this past session as well, that talks about maximizing access to transit and transit sites along the frontrunner system itself. Any other, any other of these things, including the state, we'll continue to take a look at, but we want to make sure that we're working with our partners and working, of course, with WFRC as well. And next slide, please. So this is the wrap up. And again, please ask any questions that you might have. we definitely want to work with you to create a cohesive system-wide service that allows access to opportunities. As you know, we are geographically constrained as the Wasatch Front. And so we really want to make sure that we're maximizing everything that we can do to get your community where they need to go, to get the residents where they need to go. And the last slide has our contact information. So please, if you have any, oh, I'm sorry, that is not the next slide. Sorry about that. Here's the slide that has our contact information. And the other slide that went through really quickly is just showing how we can integrate with different visions. We know that not everyone is Salt Lake, but we also know that these growth conversations are really critical when we're moving forward. And so with that, I would be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you, Beth and Laura. Are there any questions for either of them?
Here, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Mike, thanks for being here, you guys. I think my first one is maybe for Laura. One of the questions I have is, as you're looking at the service plan 5 years out, are you looking at increasing our frequency in some of those routes that were red and not green or something? I can't remember the colors.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a whole portfolio of various different services, and they're all really designed to meet different markets. And so the red lines are those that we call express routes, or our commuter routes, where you fill up a bus with in one area, you stop just a couple of times, pack people on the bus, and then you travel a long distance without any stops. And then everybody exits at kind of their destination. So those are kind of those long haul routes. We see those continuing in some form, and we'll just continue to watch the data and see how travel patterns shift, and if we need to increase those over time. We have in other parts of our service area converted some of those to more all-day routes where they come every 30 minutes or every 15 minutes throughout the day. And so we'll kind of keep watching the data and see what works best for your community. But the plan is to keep those as they are right now. But throughout, it was a little hard to see on the map, but there's a whole bunch of different lines there, right? Different colors. But overall, we have increased the frequency and the hours of service on many routes throughout the city. And we could provide a more detailed scenario or listing of those, but I hesitate to get into that level of detail because really we have a lot of work left to do with your city, right? This is a concept at this point. This is where we think we're headed, but before we finalize anything, we'll be working much more closely with your city planners and really making sure that these are the right changes for Ogden before we implement any.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I know that it's really helped in Salt Lake having some of those lines more frequent. So, and then Holbrook, I just have a really quick question, and it maybe is a long answer, but why is the BRT important and what will it do for our city? A lot of people have asked me, well, what is it? It's just a bus that's going to be going from the Frontrunner station up to Weber State. I mean, that's happening already. Can you just quickly give the reason why the BRT is an important function for us in Ogden?
I'm happy to, and I'll try to make it brief. It is a kind of a nuanced discussion, but one of the key things that we noticed when we started our UVX line, which is our bus rapid transit in Utah County, and those connector pieces connected to the Frontrunner station in Orem and in Provo. And it basically created a loop within the community and those connector pieces that incorporated two education entities, UVU and BYU. One of the elements that we discovered is that those students were trying to all get to the community, get to the school, whichever school that it was, and they usually brought their vehicles. And one of the things that was difficult for those education is they wanted to expand, they wanted to build more buildings, et cetera. They want to accommodate more students, but you have those physical constraints. And so by connecting to the Frontrunner system, which we consider to be the backbone of our service as a whole, we knew that was going to be able to connect those people that are getting off of Frontrunner to head to either those universities or those communities, but also it will allow more development that's immediately, in this case, west of the freeway. And that development included housing. It included other things that they were not able to do because of land constraints. And so in addition to a lot of other elements, one of the things that made this so successful is that this bus came every 6 minutes. So you did not need to watch your watch. You could get on at any time that you needed to get on, go on to that bus and get off wherever you needed to go. In addition to that, we found that it was incredibly attractive for students who maybe did not live near the campus, but wanted to connect. And the Frontrunner made that possible. And it made it possible in a complete transit way. And that connectivity also impacted the communities in addition to those students. So about 70% of those riders are students, I should say. And the rest of them are the community. So the community is getting on and off within their own areas or within the adjacent city to really increase that connectivity. One of the things that we want to do in this 5-year service plan and these BRTs that we're looking at doing is to increase that connectivity and invest in the infrastructure. The infrastructure is one of the key components to making sure that when we look at this, we know that a developer or the city is not going to say, well, they're just going to up and move a bus 2 blocks down, and then I've already invested all this money, and now it's not the same situation. And that is not the goal with the BRT. The BRT is designed to be that infrastructure investment within that community. You know that it's always going to be there, so that when you do your long range planning or your redevelopment in some of the cases, that is an investment that you can use. A lot of communities and a lot of people are discussing affordable housing and those other elements. Those are the things that can really complement an existing core service. One of those is Frontrunner. Certainly you've heard of TODs on the Frontrunner side. But in addition to that, we're starting to see bus core routes that are not going to be changing. That can change the dynamic completely. And so I hope that kind of gives you an overall perspective as to why this is so valuable. That other connection piece is the education piece. Getting people to where they need to go is really, really critical. And, typically students don't have a lot of extra money. They're some of our biggest riders. Other people are essential workers, getting to the hospital. All of these elements are really, really critical to the success of having that dedicated lane. So I hope that helps answer your question.
Yeah, and I think it's the dedicated lane and being able to develop around it is important. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
May I make a comment, Chair?
Yes, please.
Thanks so much, all of you, for being here. And I just wanted to tell you again how much I appreciated taking the tour of the bus rapid transit down south. It was really great for me because I've lived in really big cities and I've taken public transportation quite a bit in my life. And I haven't had to in Ogden because of other reasons. But some things that I really appreciated about the design of the new line were that, for example, all of the sidewalks or the middle of the road, I don't know what you would call that, the island that the bus pulls up to, it's exactly the same level as the bus. So instead of if you are taking your bike or a scooter, or if you happen to have a wheelchair or something like that, you're exactly the same level. So it doesn't feel like you have to step up or down to get onto the bus. And I thought that was fantastic. And just a feeling of sort of the smoothness of the whole ride and everything that existed. It was a much different kind of feeling, I would say, than riding the bus locally when I've done that. So yeah, I definitely am really excited about the new BRT coming. And I do have just one other question that I know a lot of people ask me a lot about. It's a little bit off topic, but kind of speaking to what I was just talking about. In the winter in our city, it's definitely a challenge with how the snowplows often have like ice and snow pile up in front of the UTA stops. I've even helped on my corners kind of dig them out a little bit so people have clearer access. And I was curious, what will be different? Will the BRT have a little bit more of a clean pathway than the current situation?
That is a good question. I believe that there is going to be a service that's dedicated for that, but I would actually have to turn that over to Laura to confirm, because the way that our UVX works, I believe that's the case, but I just want to double check and make sure that that's correct for the BRT. I would imagine so in Ogden, because we want to make sure that we're doing consistent service. Again, not 100% sure. So Laura, do you have the answer to that?
Well, I can speculate, and Andres, unfortunately, is probably the right one. But we do often have snow melt systems built within our platforms for our rail stations and down at UVX, and so I imagine that that's built into this project as well. But yeah, clearing snow is a challenge in Utah, and our facilities crew, they do their best to keep our bus stops clean and clear. But it's a big system, and it takes some time to work through that. But I do think these bigger capital investments. We have built in some snow melt systems and heaters within the concrete.
Wow, that's great. That's great news. Great news. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
Do you have, could you maybe give us something really high level as to the electric technology?
I'd be happy to. And Andreas can jump in. I see he's online and he could probably do some of the data. But overall, with the investment of the electric bus, and you might have seen this elsewhere, but I'll just kind of talk about this. There's going to be multiple charging stations. Some of them are going to be the overnight chargers that are going to be at the facility at our Mount Ogden business unit. And then there'll be a couple of other what we call fast chargers. And those are these poles that basically the electricity connects up at the top of the bus and charges the bus, and it's considered a fast charging system. And that's going to be part of our transit center that's going to be at the D Event Center that we're going to be building. And then the last portion of that will be at McKay-D Hospital for those chargers as well. And then the goal really is to obviously have that connectivity piece and to have that generation of electricity offsite of the Wasatch Front to minimize air quality or challenges. So shouldn't say to minimize air quality and then stop, to maximize air quality and minimize challenges to that. With that, I turn over to Andreas for any really detailed specifics. I hope that was high enough level, but Andreas is the man, so.
I'll give you a little too much detail. Good evening, thanks for having us today. The buses we're buying have large batteries, 400 kilowatt battery packs. So they will allow us to run for almost 200 miles on a single charge, which is great. But our diesel buses run a little bit more than that. So we're going to install those fast overhead chargers that Trustee Holbrook mentioned. That would allow us to keep the battery topped off. In essence, making that battery electric bus able to run nonstop. Those overhead fast chargers are going to be located at the D Event Center and at the Ogden Intermodal Center by the Frontrunner Station. So we're putting them at strategic locations that we could use in the future to expand our battery electric bus network to charge for other routes. So the investment is for this BRT route, but it could potentially help with zero emission buses in a lot more areas of the city. If you've got any other specific questions to electric buses, I'd be happy to answer them.
That was plenty. Thank you so much.
I have such a great team with me, so thank you to my team.
I have just one more question, if that's okay.
Yes.
I know we talked about, as this has been in development, one of the things that's really great is that the students usually get their pass with their tuition and their fees. So I think that's awesome because it'll help encourage people to use the BRT. Do we have a sense, I know that what there was talks about maybe applying for a grant so it could be free for a period to kind of get people on board and try to use it more?
Oh, well, you kind of, that's a great topic and a great question. And we actually already did granted that. As you probably guessed, it's not going to happen in the near future because we have to do construction. But we do anticipate something similar to what you saw with the UVX free fare mode to encourage the rider portion. So that should be coming online probably, I want to say in like 2024 or something like like that. So,
Yeah, that'd be
but
great.
great question. And yes, we did.
Thank you.
I have a question, Chair.
Yes.
This is concerning the, the electric vehicle aspect of the buses. Is that something that is likely to get clear through the bus fleet? Is that, it seems like electric buses, not only are they cheaper to run, the maintenance is significantly less and would perhaps be a better solution for the fleet rather than just on the BRT. Is that something that, it's maybe not what you're here to talk about that much, but I'm interested if you're moving that way.
That's a great question. And I would say that is definitely a policy decision that we as trustees have been taking a look at. We currently have, I want to say, 3 electric buses, possibly 4. And so we're starting out in this realm. We do have the majority of our fleet is currently diesel, and then we have a portion of that that's CNG. And we do want to take a look at that and really determine a strategy that's going to be beneficial for the agency. Some of these diesel buses, it might sound like it's antiquated, but when you are maybe doing a ski bus, you're going up hills, there's other things that until the technology catches up, you do really have to have this an overall propulsion system model that allows you to have flexibility within your fleet. We are going to be getting, in addition to the 11 buses for the Ogden BRT, we do anticipate receiving another 20 buses. This was part of the VW settlement. That's going to be going to our next BRT project, which is the Mid-Valley BRT, which is in Salt Lake County. And so we are definitely on that path in terms of making sure we have optimum flexibility. But we do take air quality as a real significant decision just one of those things that we have to take into consideration when we're looking at this. But we do want to make sure, again, that we have flexibility, but we definitely look at long range, the growth. What is that going to look like? The trustees have not come to a decision on that yet, our board, but we do anticipate taking further looks at that as we move along through all of these other elements.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Not seeing any.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Chair and Council and Mayor and staff. I really want to thank you for this opportunity, and I wanted you to feel free to connect with any one of us here tonight. We really want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to maximize access to your community and understanding of what it is that you're doing for growth and moving forward. So thank you again. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone you brought with you. Okay, next up is the approval of minutes. First is the joint work session of January 12th, 2021. Councilmember Nadolski.
Yep, they're good. Thank you.
Thank you. And a special meeting of January 12th, 2021. Councilmember.
Yes, Chair, I've read those minutes and they are correct. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Great, thank you. We have a motion to approve the minutes by Councilmember Chaburka and a second by Councilmember Nadolski. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Next up, we have 2 items listed under common consent. First is the FY21 budget amendment to set the public hearing for April 6, 2021. And the second is the FY21 salary schedule, setting a public hearing for April 6, 2021.
Chair, I'd make a motion that we approve the common consent agenda, setting both items public hearings for April 6th.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to approve the items listed under common consent and a second by Councilmember Nadolski. This too
Chair?
is,
Sir,
sorry?
can I just make a quick comment?
Sure.
Although this is on common consent, and I just want to make sure that people understand that it is a public hearing, that we're just setting the public hearing. I know that I will most likely have some more questions about this before then, and I just want the public to understand that. So, I mean, that was just a comment.
Okay. Great, thank you. Yeah. We discussed this in the work session. We're setting the public hearing, and then we'll have a couple weeks before we actually take public comment on it. So there is definitely more to come. So with that, we will go ahead and, we already had the motion in the second. So this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Thank you. Next up is public comments. Before we begin that, just a couple reminders. Questions posed during public comment will be noted and answered at the end of all public comments. If the council has the answers to the questions, the council will respond to those questions. For questions that relate to administrative matters, the mayor may choose to respond to those during his comment period. Questions for council or the administration can always be sent to the city council at ogdencity.com. And the city council encourages civil disclosure for everyone who participates in our meetings. Everyone will have 3 minutes, and we encourage everyone to state their name and their address for the record. With that, we will turn it over to, I'm guessing, Eric, to explain how the public comment portion will work. And then after that, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comments.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. For those of you who'd like to participate in tonight's public comment portion of the meeting, you must be joining us via Zoom. You can raise your hand by using the raise hand feature on the bottom of your application. And like Chair Blair said, make sure to state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Great. Thank you. It looks like we have some hands raised already. So with that, we'll go ahead and begin. Angel Castilla, your hand is raised and the time is now yours.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I'm seeing something on the screen. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, great. Oh, the timer was waiting. Got it. So Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I just wanted to thank the City Council for taking the time and making the effort to recognize Autistic Ogden and the great work that Stacy Bernal is doing. And I'd like to talk about the story that Ben told about how OPD really did a fantastic job in working with a neuroatypical child. And I want to segue that into that officer that did that work is an experienced officer. And one of the things that you talked about during the work session is this salary study. And there's a couple of things that I would like you to make sure that you ask and gather more information on, because we, as you know, are losing a lot of really experienced officers to other cities. And while our starting salary is $18.80 an hour, Weber County's is $20.53, and Salt Lake City is $21. And both Weber County and Salt Lake City offer a $5,000 lateral bonus to give our officers when they take them, so they make because they make more money. And it was mentioned that there was an adjustment to the percentage increase for the lower cost of living in Ogden. And I would like you to reach out and get this hard information, but the data that I have says that about 5% of our officers live in Ogden. And we're talking about Salt Lake City being, 45 minutes away. And the fact that you're adjusting down for that increase because the cost of living is less in Ogden, bear in mind, many of our officers, almost most, 95% don't live here. And so it's a really important thing that we make sure that we retain the talent that we've invested so heavily in. And we have amazing men and women that work on the force, and we have a great, great police force. And we constantly lose officers to other agencies. They go to UTA, they go to Salt Lake City, they go to Weber County. And I'd really encourage you to take a systems level analysis approach and look at the why, and maybe talk to some officers, and don't just take data based on a salary adjustment when people who are going to be affected by that don't actually live here, and you're bringing that number down even more. So I just encourage you to ask more questions as we get closer to actually bringing that on board. Thank you.
Thanks, Angel. Okay. I lost my. Great. Next up, we have Heath Sato. Go ahead, Heath. The time is now yours.
Hi, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. A few weeks ago, Councilmember Nadolski said that, quote, most people don't start out mad. Lots of people reach out and want to engage. But when they're ignored, we leave them with little choice but to become enraged, unquote. Mark Johnson, representing the administration, refused to address even a single question I asked last week and chose instead to talk about college football. That is being ignored. When all of you say that you have heard the answers to my questions and yet not one of you has reached out to me with those answers, that is being ignored. So yeah, I'm angry. You all agreed not long ago that the Brown Ice Cream building should be put on the historic register. Now that I've raised concerns about how this deal was made, you have started saying you think maybe the building should just be torn down. Aside from all the other questions nobody has answered, I have a new question tonight. Who put this idea in your head that one of the few salvageable historic buildings we have left downtown suddenly isn't worth saving? You all just started talking about this last week, so please, tonight, give us the name of where that idea originated. I'm hoping it's not the broker that doesn't even know how big the building is. I'm hoping it's not the developer who also didn't seem to know the size of the building. I'm hoping it's not Brandon Cooper, who in addition to not knowing the size of the building, seems to have falsely told you that the building was being publicly marketed, among other contradictions. Do you not care about being misinformed? I am. Someone told me last week that Mr. Cooper has already answered all my questions. I'm here to tell you that that is a lie. You told me last week that he would gladly answer any more questions. That's false too, as he will not respond to me. I sent out these questions again a week ago and yesterday. No response at all. You all have copies of these emails. Councilman Heyer, last week you condescendingly suggested that I don't even know how RDAs work, which is false. You said I'm just asking the wrong questions. No. When I tell you that an employee of the city in charge of choices involving hundreds of millions of dollars is giving you false information, that's not a wrong question. If you did in fact get the answers to my questions from Mr. Cooper, then please publicly answer them tonight. You have most of my questions in my last email to you. We could hear those answers instead of talking about football maybe. If nobody is hiding anything, this should be fast and easy. If this building is torn down without multiple developers being given the opportunity to at least look at it and see if they can meet your needs for a project like this, you have all failed at your job. If you need a list of interested developers that are more than capable of handling this project and have expressed an interest in it, I can give you that list. I will gladly do the job the broker should have done. Accountability requires transparency, not just blind trust when it comes to government and multi-million-dollar deals. Be transparent. Thank you.
Thank you, Heath. Okay. I'm not seeing any more hands raised.
Chair Blair.
We'll give it. Yes.
Dr. Crawford, he came into the office a little earlier and wanted to know how to get on the meeting. So
okay.
He's not raising his hand, but we think he wants to comment. So I'll allow him. Oh, there he is. Oh, wait. I'll just allow him to talk.
He keeps trying to raise his hand, it looks like, but then it goes off.
Oh, really?
So yeah, if we could allow him to speak, that would be wonderful.
Okay, I'll do that now.
Okay, Dr. Crawford, are you there? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate being a part of your time. I stand in favor of maintaining the Marshall White Community Center as a beacon and a symbol of a ongoing and long legacy that we have, not only to honor Marshall White, but also the activities and the work that goes on in that center. Of course, you know as well as I do that a number of community-based meetings are part of the Marshall White Center, and clearly the centerpiece of the Marshall White Center is it's a centerpiece of youth growth and development, and so I really stand to be in favor of us really taking a hard look at the value that the Marshall White Center has contributed to our immediate community. We already know that it's a place where students can really develop their attributes and their talents, and of course it goes without saying that Marshall White being a part of this community, that name and that legacy will continue on. But more important to me, council members, than anything else, is that the Marshall White Center really, to me, is an investment in human capital. It's an investment in human capital that underscores the value of the development of all of our youth in the community, but also as a place where leadership can continue to thrive and advance and be an integral part of the voice and part of our community. And so I just want to thank you for just share a few reflective thoughts about why I believe that the Marshall White Center should be kept in consideration and as a result to sustain itself. And I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Crawford. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. Let's give it one more minute just to be safe. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. So with that, we'll go ahead and do comments from the mayor.
Well, am I on? Can you hear me?
You are on, yep.
All right. Well, hey, I want to thank Stacy Bernal and Beth Holbrook for their comments and everything that they've done. I mean, what a couple of amazing community advocates, and I'm proud to support them and support the messages that we gave tonight. I want to thank Forrest for his comments. He's been additionally a great community advocate, and we'll certainly listen to that. And I want to thank you all for your service and everything that you're doing. And we appreciate the opportunity to work together. And as we're going into this budget year, I can't say for all of you, but I can say for myself, I'm tired of being on Zoom meetings, and I look forward to meeting together with all of you personally as we go through some of these really important discussions. And I thank you all for your commitment and for what you do. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mayor. Any comments from council members?
I have a quick question, Chair.
Okay.
I would like to find out if we're going to have any kind of a timeline or any new information about my question from last week about the petition to look at food trailer ordinance from 2 years ago that I asked Mark Johnson.
Council or Chair, if I might answer that.
Yes, please.
I did speak with Mark Johnson about this, and he touched base with the planning folks. They think they will have it to us within 2 or 3 months. It still has to go through the planning commission and everything, so that's why it'll take a little bit longer.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, any other council comments?
Chair, I'll make a comment since my name's been brought up tonight in the public comments. I guess the question was, what is the name of the person that encouraged us to consider knocking down the brown ice cream building? There isn't a name. I guess I'd just say that we're revisiting a topic that we talked about in the past when we bring that up, because it's our job to do that. Long ago, I understand it started even before my time on the council, is that previous council members asked that building be preserved. That's something that we looked at as a council and made that decision. And it's an ongoing development with a lot of moving parts, some of which we need to make sure that we respect. And for me anyway, it was a matter of learning that we've got an agreement with somebody for that building, and knowing that that agreement has been kind of stalled for a little while, that we need to ask that question again. It doesn't mean that that's the direction we're going. It means that we're doing our due diligence by asking the question to make sure that, that building, how does it fit within the future of that space? Is it still a good fit given the circumstances we have now versus the circumstances we had back then when we made that decision? That's the motive for asking the question. It's not that anybody called and said you should knock it down. It's us having our conscience and doing our due diligence in these roles. And as it relates to due diligence, one of the hard things that, just speaking for myself when I say this, one of the challenging things with some of the real estate contracts and a lot of the closed sessions for reasons, there's negotiations and topics and so on that are not, that we're really not allowed to share. And sometimes I feel like I have so much information in my mind about all of these things that I sometimes get nervous to share too much, that I might overshare on things I'm not supposed to be sharing when I'm not supposed to share them. And so I'm a little timid to just go out and just say everything that I know, in fear of maybe oversharing where I'm not supposed to. And so that's just me, and why I might not be as forthcoming as Heath might like me to be on the brown ice cream. But it's not because I have anything to hide. It's just I feel like we've listened to the answers. We've tried to answer them the best that we can. We have gotten more answers, and I feel like the questions that Heath has asked have spurred me to ask those questions to Mr. Cooper. And I just get the sense that no matter what we say in response, it's not going to be enough. And so I feel comfortable where I'm at. I actually talked with Councilmember Lopez a few days ago about it because he still has questions. And he asked some things that I still want to ask more questions about too. So I'm comfortable at the moment, but I don't feel like I'm done. And I'm going to continue down that path, but I want to make sure that I'm respecting Mr. Cooper, that we're not besmirching anybody or assigning any ill intent when we don't have any indication that there is any. In fact, I've said it in the past that ever since Denver, we've really asked Brandon to be more communicative with us, and he's been every bit as responsive to that as we could ever ask. And I want to honor that too. So I'm not trying to hide anything, and that's not why I'm not answering the questions as direct as he might like. It's just that I want to be responsible, but I also want to be kind in my service and kind to others while we do so. So thank you. I'll continue my work and answering my own questions with the assistance of Brandon has offered for information.
Thanks, Councilmember Nadolski. Any other comments?
Sure, Blair, I have a quick comment, and I know that so oftentimes it's frustrating, our form of government, and I know that one of Mr. Sato's comments was that Mr. Johnson didn't answer him, and if we were in the chambers, it's the Ogden City Council meetings, and in past administrations, the mayor and sometimes the CAO didn't even show up to those council meetings because it was our council meeting. And so I just want him to understand that you know, Mr. Johnson may not answer the question, or even the mayor may not answer the question because they don't, they need more information, or they need to get understanding of the questions we're asking. So I know it's frustrating and maybe not to his point, but I don't think having him answer in a way that doesn't make him fully satisfied that it is not, isn't always going to be the case. I mean, there's not always an answer, and we sometimes have to ask administration to go back and get that information. But if we were in the chambers, my guess is that they wouldn't answer the questions either. It's just that we happen to be on Zoom and we're asking them to do something a little bit out of the norm. So, not that it's right or wrong, but that's the way it is on our government.
Thank you, Vice Chair White. Any other council comments at this time? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez to adjourn this meeting and a second by Councilmember Heyer. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thanks everybody for being here tonight and for participating, and wish you all a good night and remind you to stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Bart. Good night.
Good night.